I want to bring in Fox News senior strategic analyst General Jack Keane. General, thank you so much for joining us. We heard Heather Nauert, and we also heard from Holly McKay there on the ground to sort of get a reaction of what the mood is there. But first and foremost, I wanted to get your reaction to Heather Nauert and what do you feel after hearing that?
Well, first of all, let's credit the administration for, one, taking action. Yeah, we had a previous administration that failed to, in the view of such a horrific thing as the use of chemical weapons. Second, credit the administration for bringing our allies into the strike and representing the entire international community, because this really is an attack on civilization, on the international community.
I feel like there's a but coming.
Yeah, there's a big but coming. But I think that the response is very weak, in my judgment, particularly in view of the fact that this is a follow-up attack by Assad to a strike that we had already delivered a year ago. It should have been decisive. It should have been consequential. As a result of this strike, we still leave them with multiple chemical storage sites and production capabilities. We didn't put a single glove on an airplane or a delivery system or an airfield. And what is happening? Assad made this calculation. He's trying to secure Damascus. He's been fighting for it for months. The Russians have been bombing every single day. They got down to this one place in Ghouta where the rebels were holding out. Russians bombed all the hospitals, bombed them day in, day out, almost 24-hour bombing. They were still holding out. Assad calculates, okay, I'm going to use chemical weapons. He used the chemical weapons. 6 hours later, the rebels surrendered, and they're gone, and Russian police are there. His calculation was, I'm going to use the weapon. I know the United States is going to respond. I suspect there's going to be another modest response, and I'm willing to pay that price.
Okay, devil's advocate will say, you know, we broadcasted our capability, meaning we sort of tested the waters. They see what we're capable of, and we can do more. The United States is willing to do more. It doesn't seem as if it's one and done, meaning even the ambassador, Nikki Haley, will say, we're locked and loaded.
Well, that's inviting and incentivizing another chemical attack. Isn't the purpose of this is to stop these guys from using these weapons? Look, the thing that we're not talking about here is why didn't we take out all of his military capability that he has? Because we're intimidated by a second-rate power who's trying to pretend to be a superpower called the Russians, and they have put their stooges at those military bases, and we're afraid to do harm to them. That's what's not being discussed. That's the so-called collateral damage. And they threaten escalation. This second-rate power, we have a considerable overmatch of them in the Middle East, or any place else for that matter, is threatening escalation, like they did with Obama in Ukraine. And he bought into it. We should not buy into it. We've got people who are advising the president who are far too risk-averse, to be quite frank about it.
When we heard a reaction, a statement from Russian President Vladimir Putin, it was almost immediate, which is also a little bit uncharacteristic to have a reaction so quickly. But he didn't use the words act of war. He said that they condemn the act of aggression, but not the act of war. Should we read into that?
Well, what Putin has scored a major victory here, he and the Iranians. They have propped up the Assad regime indefinitely. This thing that Heather Nauert's talking about in Geneva, that's fantasy. There's not going to be any negotiated peace. They own Syria. And they've got a victory here. And the thought that Putin would start shooting at us over our reaction to a chemical attack in Syria, which would get the United States more involved in Syria, that's ridiculous. He's not going to shoot at us. He doesn't want us involved. We're already advertising that we're leaving. And they're cheering. And we're firing a few shots as we go out the door. That's what's happening here.
All right, General Keane, thank you for coming on and reacting. We appreciate it very much. Okay.